Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another On the Couch with My Food Religion. Today I am here with Sarah, who is one of the podiatrists at Frankie4 Footwear. Thank you, Sarah, for spending time with me today.
No problem.
What I would love to know is the story behind Frankie4 Footwear, because it's completely different to most other shoe stores that you will go into. So I'm going to start you with once upon a time, and let's go from there.
Okay, well, probably pre-10 years ago. So the brand started 10 years ago. We've got our 10th anniversary this year. So sometime before that, when our founder, Caroline McCulloch, was working in private practice as a physio and podiatrist, she saw the need for a fashionable shoe for women that was also good for their feet. So no treatment plan works well if, you know, part of it is wearing an ugly shoe. So people would come in with these painful conditions such as bunions, plantar fasciitis, that sort of thing, be told what they've got, what to do to fix the problem, and then be presented with their shoe option and think, well, maybe I'll just have foot pain then. So that's where the idea of Frankie4 came about, the need for a fashionable shoe that would also help aid the treatment and management of painful foot conditions, so that women didn't have to choose between looking good or being pain-free, basically.
Absolutely. And that's such an interesting point, because I think a lot of the time when we think about a sensible shoe, they're pretty horrendous.
Yeah, that's it. We don't like that word, sensible shoe. We are a fashion footwear brand, but we are the healthier option for fashion footwear.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just helping people to make a better choice, isn't it? Because I think
it's giving them options. Before they didn't have a choice. They were presented the chunky, sensible shoe that you think, oh, grandma would wear that. Now they've got the option of a sensible shoe that also looks good on the foot, and women can feel good wearing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, I remember years and years and years ago, I had to wear orthotics.
Yeah.
And it was like there was only certain shoes that I could actually fit this massive, big, chunky orthotic in.
Yeah.
And to the point where I was ended up just throwing out my clothes going, it's just not worth it. I'm just
not
doing
surprised.
I'm not doing it. Yeah, so really interesting now that we've got shoes that actually look great, but are also really functional for wear as well.
So a lot of our shoes can accommodate an orthotic, whether that be a custom made one or a semi-custom made one, where sort of in the past we were faced with just a jogger with our nice work clothes to put our orthotic in, and now we've got our active flats which function like joggers, but they look a whole lot more fashionable, and we've got our boots and even some of our dressier options like the Brogues and Mary Janes can take orthotics too. So it just gives women just a whole new selection of choice.
And I think probably what's so important is we spend, generally, people who are going to an office to work all day spend so much of their time in a shoe.
Yeah.
So you're spending at least half your day, for most people, in a shoe. So you're putting your body into a certain position and your foot into a certain position that it's staying in for a really long period of time. So unless you've got the benefit of being able to wear bare feet and take your shoes off, your foot is in a position, potentially elevated as well, in a heel for a really long time. So let's talk about heels, because you guys do have heels.
Yeah, you have a range of heels.
Yeah, you've got
different
heels,
heights, so to suit everybody. Some people really can't wear heels; they just can't balance or find them a little uncomfortable.
They
so
look
we
like
make
drunk
a
baby
small
giraffes.
heel for them, so they can still look nice and still have the option of a heel. And then we sort of have our, mid-level and higher heels too. But we know our body wasn't designed to wear heels.
Yes.
We've just made a heel option that is better for your foot, and we've done everything we can. We've looked at lots of scientific studies and clinical trials about different heel heights and different padding and that sort of thing to create a heel option that is going to be the healthiest for your foot and the most comfortable, so that you can wear it as long as possible, being pain-free. As I said, as a health professional, podiatrists and physiotherapists wouldn't really be recommending people to wear high heels all the time, but as women, we know we want to wear high heels, so we created something for you so that you can do it in the comfiest way possible.
So what's the problem with a heel?
Well, with every sort of centimetre the heel height raises, more pressure goes onto the ball of the foot. So you imagine your feet carry your whole body weight, so once you're in a high heel, most of that falls onto the ball of the foot and in that central part of the ball of the foot. So you can imagine your entire body weight resting on a few square centimeters on each foot, and that's where you run into trouble. Those little bony heads underneath the foot taking all that body weight and becoming quite painful.
Which is why I think I very rarely wear heels anymore. But if I go to a wedding or something like that, I seriously get 2 hours in and the balls of my feet are just burning and aching.
Yeah.
Like, there is so much pain. But it's not even just your feet that are wearing the brunt of that, because you're tilting your whole body into this completely, unnatural positioning, isn't it? Like your pelvis
Definitely.
is getting into a position that it shouldn't be in.
Your ankles, your knees, your hips, your lower back. You can even sort of see it when people are walking, that curve in their lower back. So all of those things what we put on our feet affects our entire body. So the way we've designed our heels is to try and spread load as evenly as possible throughout the whole foot. So we've got sort of strategically placed contouring and cushioning, particularly under the ball of the foot, because in a high heel, that's where you need it most. And we're trying to take that pressure away from that area and push it throughout the rest of the foot to almost replicate as closely as possible what it would be like if you weren't wearing a high heel.
Yeah. So no one is going to find a stiletto in here anywhere.
No, definitely not. We don't want people falling over. Our heels are a little bit more stable than that, and the width of the heel can also contribute to that feeling of stability and spreading that weight more evenly throughout the foot.
Yeah. So if somebody is going to wear a heel and potentially it's a stiletto, or it's not a Frankie, even if it is a Frankie, you go into an event and you're going to whack those heels on for a certain number of periods, hours of time. What would you recommend as a podiatrist for somebody when you take those shoes off? What can they do to just help with that foot pain, help to just sort of readjust, rebalance, put everything back into the place where it's supposed to be?
Yeah, so, first of all, I wouldn't recommend doing it. I'd recommend coming in here and getting a sensible pair of heels that is going to be just as fashionable, but I think you need that really good pair of shoes to wear most of the time.
Yes.
I know not everyone's going to be in their good shoes all the time, and if it's that 5% of the week that you're in something bad, if we can get your foot back into something like one of our active flats, the lowest shoe, really good levels of cushioning, arch support, maximal sort of comfort through that even weight distribution, hopefully you won't have done too much damage.
Yeah. And so if someone does though go wear heels to a wedding, their feet are aching like all shit, what can they do to help ease that pain and just help the inflammation in that foot?
Well, don't go around barefoot. So I think you'll probably find the next day when you hop out of bed, the pain is instantaneous. So
that plantar fasciitis.
Or even that bruising feeling under the ball of the foot. We are big on the house shoe here. So if you have a pair of, say, slip-on shoes, something like Maria or Lily, that you can just keep the inside of the house. It doesn't get dirty. You don't wear it outside, and especially on those days when you're suffering from foot pain, they go on your feet as soon as you get out of bed. They help sort of reduce that shock from the hard floors in our home. They can sort of heal the foot, essentially.
Yeah. Would you suggest any type of rolling, ice, any of that sort of jazz?
Well, I do sort of suggest those sort of rolling things for chronic injuries, but I guess when you've done a one-off sort of number, I think rest is the key, or relative rest, not sitting down and not doing anything, but putting your foot in a position that will rest those overused structures.
Yeah, awesome. So in terms of sort of staying on that heel situation, you guys also have wedges.
Yeah, so wedges are a good option for someone who really feels that pressure under the ball of the foot, because essentially we've brought up the ball of the foot. Your foot isn't going to be on such a big angle, but you still get that height and sort of the dressiness, that comes with that. So I think a lot of people find them more stable too, because there is that greater contact with the ground. So I think they're a good option for someone who wants to wear a heel but maybe doesn't feel quite as comfortable in a heel.
Yeah. And so would a wedge in general be a better option than a heel as a general rule?
I think we have to consider all the heights of the heel and the angle that the foot is on, but I would say as a general rule, the less angle that the foot is placed on, the better it is. And you can achieve that with the wedge. So you can achieve that with a small heel too, but if you want that high heel look, the wedge is a good option because we're not sort of placing the foot on that angle.
Yeah, perfect. So I would love to know your thoughts on the minimal sole shoe.
Oh, yes.
Because there's a lot more shoes now coming out that have got that, you know, zero drop to them, particularly in like athletic shoe land.
Yeah.
There's a lot more shoes now that are coming out with that, you know, minimal sole, minimal drop. They've got a really flexible sole. There's generally not even a lot of sole going on. What are your thoughts on a shoe like that?
Well, I guess the theory behind them is they're trying to replicate barefoot walking or barefoot running. However, unfortunately, as soon as you put something on the foot, as soon as there's something underneath the sole of your foot, something wrapping around the skin, touching, even if they've created something that scientifically resembles barefoot walking, we just know that as soon as the foot's in a shoe, it does not function like a bare foot. So it's kind of impossible to replicate barefoot anything as soon as you put a shoe or even a sock on the foot. So what we find is the best thing to do when you're in a shoe is to actually have about a 10mm offset under the heel, because that sort of undoes, you know, the changes that having the shoe on your foot causes, and the foot functions optimally in a shoe with that little 10mm offset, which just means the heel is sitting about this much higher than the ball of the foot. So obviously when we're barefoot, the foot is sitting flat, but we just know from all the evidence and scientific research so far that it is impossible to recreate those barefoot conditions in a shoe.
Yeah, well, I mean, you don't have all the proprioception. Proprioception of actually having all of those toes on the ground, feeling what's underneath your feet. So probably on that sort of strain, you guys generally have quite a nice wide toe bed for your shoes. So because I have got a pair of like minimal sole shoes that I will like walk in or do weights in and stuff like that. And what I like about them is that they have got a wider sort of toe bed for them, so you can actually still spread those toes out and actually get more of that feeling of putting your feet into the ground. So can you explain the structure generally of a Frankie4 shoe? How is it different to, you know, the general shoe you're going to pick up off the shelf?
Well, just going back to the toe box, our toe box allows for the anatomical shape of the forefoot to sit naturally, so you won't find anything constricting the forefoot. As soon as we start to get that constriction, you worry about that burning and numbness, those sort of symptoms that come from having something really tight around the forefoot and pressing on the nerves. So all of our shoes allow the forefoot to sit naturally and the toes to sit where they want to sit. Even some of our more narrower, pointier.
So you guys have got like a little pointed toe flat that is gorgeous, and it still has that beautiful pointed toe look, but it has that slightly wider footbed.
So what you'll find is the pointy sort of styles, they're probably just a little bit longer to compensate for you know, having that pointed toe. We don't want to see the toes being forced into the pointy area of the shoe. We want to see them sitting comfortably and then the point sitting further along the foot. So you can still wear those sort of shoes that look nice, a little bit more dainty, but without sort of damaging the toes.
So can you tell me a bit more about the structure of a Frankie shoe and why it is like that?
So I guess our major unique features of the shoe include, first of all, we'll start with the sole of the shoe. It's sort of designed by a podiatrist and physiotherapist. It wasn't just sort of, you know, a generic sole placed on our shoe. It was designed with purpose, and all the levels of cushioning, those layers of support were put there with purpose where the foot needs it the most. And then when we move up inside the shoe, we have our functional footbed, which contains arch support, forefoot support and heel support. So that footbed is replaceable with a half footbed, and that's another feature, which is our patented custom fit pack. So if you have a really broad foot, you can take out that full length footbed and put in the half length footbed and get all that extra room in the toe box for the forefoot for those people with the wider feet. And you're not missing out on any cushioning because that's all built into that sole that has been specifically designed. Then on the other hand, there's people with narrower feet that also have problems moving around in the shoe. You might get that length correct, but the foot's still moving around. So instead of trying to buy a smaller shoe to fit, to make your foot still and end up scrunching your toes, we can add a cushion underneath that full length footbed, which feels nice and comfy, but also makes the shoe fit more snug and keeps it on your foot, so there'll be no rubbing around the toes. And in saying that, a few of our designs also have a secret little foam lining around the toe box, so that if there is any slight movement, you're not going to get friction, you're not going to get rubbing or anything like that.
That sort of jazz. So why do people get blisters in their shoes?
Generally poor fit, and that doesn't have to be too small, it could be too big. So if the shoe's too big and you're moving around, it's going to rub. If the shoe's too small, just that pressure on the foot. So I would say ill-fitting shoes, or if the materials are not really agreeing with the skin, if it's too firm and you get that little bit of movement. But generally, to get a blister, there has to be some sort of pressure or movement over the skin.
So one of the things I love about Frankie, that I only learned a few weeks ago talking to Erin, is that all of the shoes are named after somebody that they know. Have you got a shoe named after you?
Well, we're on to the second Sarah now. A few years ago,
You're
we
recycling
had a
Sarahs.
heel. There's something in the works. It's not out yet, but there will be a new Sarah soon.
Amazing. So I love that. So
the Alana. It's the only shoe named after a man, Alan, which is Caroline's
Really?
husband.
That's so funny. So why was it just called the Allen?
Well, it is a women's high heel. I don't know.
So, any particular reason why you do not make shoes for men or kids?
I guess we want to just stick with what we're good at.
Specialise.
Don't expand too far and sort of miss things. We're a specialty shoe. We're women's shoes, and we know women's shoes. Once you start trying to design men's shoes and children's shoes, there's a lot more information to consider, and I don't think you can be good at everything.
I think the tricky thing with kids' shoes as well is it's very, very hard as a parent to justify spending $200 to $300 on a pair of shoes that is going to fit them for a very short period of time, generally. So obviously you want to do the best you can, but you're also kind of weighing up, I'm happy to spend $100 on a pair of shoes that's going to last you for 6 to 12 months, but I'm not okay with spending $300 on a pair of shoes that's not going to last you very long.
That's it.
So in terms of men's shoes and kids' shoes, just in general, in your opinion, is there anything in particular we should be looking for as a definite no?
Well, I don't want to rule out things, but with the kids' shoes, I think, as you said, they last such a short time, and I think 3 to 6 months is pretty standard. So all I can say is I'd recommend buying one good pair of shoes. Don't buy your children's shoes in every colour and style to match everything that are not good. Buy them that one good pair of kids' shoes. And there are specialty shops for that. You're probably not just going to walk into any store and pick up a pair. Go to one of those stores. Like our store is a specialty store that specialises in fitting women's shoes. You can find that in kids' shoes as well.
And it's probably worthwhile investing in the pair of shoes that they're going to spend the most amount of time in. So if they're at school age and they're going to spend at least 6 hours of their day in a certain shoe, that might be the pair of shoes to invest in. And the rest of the time, chances are they don't even have shoes on.
That's true. They'll throw them up as soon as they get home from school, so don't even worry.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to change direction a little bit now, and I would love to touch on pregnancy and feet and shoes in pregnancy, because obviously that's it's a time of a woman's life where their body is going through so much change. I noticed when I was pregnant, my foot went up like half the size.
Yeah, definitely.
And that wasn't just like, I don't know, it didn't feel like it was just fluid and swelling and like just big swollen legs. It felt like my whole foot changed, and I don't know that it's actually gone back.
No, it probably hasn't. So, I mean, I know when you're pregnant it does feel like a really long time, but then when hindsight you think, oh, I'm not pregnant for that long, but the changes that we experience during pregnancy tend to last forever. So during your first pregnancy, your foot...
Throw out all of those shoes that I had pre-pregnancy.
On average, your foot will grow a full size in length during your first pregnancy, and then you'll have those width and volume changes in addition to that. So as soon as you're pregnant, your body starts producing a hormone called relaxin, which just makes all your ligaments really stretchy and just really aids in your growth and then your labour and birthing process as well. But unfortunately, that hormone doesn't just affect the regions it needs to, it's your whole body. So all of your body, you become a little bit more mobile, a little bit more flexible. And in the feet, we see the size change. So the length, the width, the volume, we see the arch then collapse a little bit because all the ligaments holding the bones together in the foot become stretchy, and you lose some of that rigidity in the joints, and the arch starts to collapse. So you might see after your pregnancy that you have a foot that is a bigger size and you have a flatter foot. Your arch is a little bit more collapsed. So that's what we've really tried to take on board when designing our footwear, that we want to support those ligaments, we want to support that lowering of the arch, and our footbed has that arch support in it so that it can sort of hold it up and you don't get the ill effects of having a flat foot. And what you were saying before with the swelling, that tends to go up and down day to day. So with pregnancy we see lower limb swelling because of pressures on certain veins because of the baby's growing size, and the blood flow is affected, and we see probably toward the end of the day quite swollen legs and feet, and that's where our custom fit feature works really well, because you may go out in the morning with a full length footbed in your shoe. In the afternoon you may need to take that out and put the half length footbed when your foot has become a little bit swollen. So basically all these features in our shoes are there with that pregnancy changes in mind to support women both during and after the pregnancy. So, you know, the swelling's gone after pregnancy, no problems. We can adjust the shoe to fit your foot when it's not so swollen as well.
Yeah, but that length is probably going to stay.
Yeah, so what the sort of scientific studies have told us is that your foot on average grows about one full length size, which is 1 centimetre, between the 20th week of pregnancy and term. So it doesn't really go back after the first pregnancy, but you won't see it grow that much every pregnancy. Those changes are residual, but then you have that little bit more mobility in the joints after that.
Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it? So in terms of, and we can probably start with talking about pregnancy, but exercise and movement throughout pregnancy, obviously all of those limbs are going to be a bit more hypermobile, which is why they're always really cautious with things like yoga and anything that's stretching any of your joints to a place, because you're probably going to be just a bit more stretchy from all that relaxin in your body. In terms of footwear, if someone was going to wear footwear whilst being active, and whether that's going for a walk, running, whatever it is that that person wants to do, firstly, while they're pregnant, what are some things that are really important for them to be aware of with their footwear?
Well, first of all, I'd say the most important thing is stability. So we want that nice stable base of the shoe, because with that sort of relaxin hormone and the instability comes that tendency to trip over and that sort of thing as well. So we become a little bit more unstable, and having a stable base is going to support that. So we don't want something wobbly. We certainly wouldn't be recommending higher heels. So something like the Active Flats that has a nice stable base, and then in addition to that, the footbed in the shoe, and how that helps is all the contours around the arch and the heel and the forefoot essentially increase the contact of the foot with its supporting surface. So the more of your skin underneath your foot that is touching something, the more stable you are. And you know that we talked about proprioception before, so if there's only a little bit of your foot touching the ground, you're going to feel unstable. But if that footbed is really sort of cradling the foot, you're going to get a lot more signals between your foot and your brain about where you are, and you're going to be a lot more stable.
Yeah. So you guys do like you do a trainer, like a, you know, like a.
We've got a few.
Yeah, there's some down there behind you. Do you do an activewear shoe, like a shoe that someone would wear to the gym, to go walking, I don't know, potentially running?
We do. So these ones that we've got here are more sort of walking casual active flats. You can do a little exercise in them, but if you want to do something more intense, we've got a different range of shoes. The Billy, the Tambo, you'll see they have the mesh upper. It's more breathable if you're going to work up a sweat. It's got slightly different materials in the sole that are better suited to that repetitive loading of exercise, more so than standing and walking, and that's really important too. So the shoes are each designed for their activity. We don't, recommend, one shoe for everything. So I think that's a problem that people run into too when they have sore feet. Wearing a shoe that's not suited to the activity, wearing a shoe that was made for running to stand in all day is not going to benefit your foot as it does when you're running in it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you guys do have shoes that people can come and grab to do their running. Now, if they're transitioning from a different type of shoe into a Frankie, so I mean, I know when I used to run, I don't know what short-circuited in my brain at some point in my life where I thought that was a good idea, but I did.
Yep.
And I used to religiously buy Asics, whatever they were. So you're still spending $300 on a pair of shoes.
Yeah.
They would wear out for me within 6 months completely. But I seriously could not put on a pair of Asics now because I find them so chunky and such a big, heavy, like just huge shoe. So if someone's transitioning from a shoe like that to a Frankie, how would you recommend them transitioning into something that you guys have as opposed to a normal running shoe?
Yeah, well, our range is probably designed for that multitude of activities. When you're talking about Asics shoes, they're made for running or for netball or for tennis, for example, whereas ours is sort of designed to be used for varying levels of intensity and different types of exercise. What you'll see with our shoes is that they've got a more neutral base, which means they are suited to multi-directional movement.
Yes.
And they do have the arch support inside the shoe.
Yeah.
However, if you feel like when you're exercising you don't want that feeling of the arch, we also have a light footbed, so we can take that out and put the flatter footbed in there, which probably just gives them that feeling of being lower to the ground and that sort of thing. So I don't think anyone would have a problem transitioning into the shoe because one, they're neutral, they're not going to push the foot into unnatural positions, and two, they've got the footbed options for whichever sort of makes you feel more comfortable. A traditional running shoe, for example, is quite built up on the inside of the shoe to stop people rolling in some designs, and that's not going to suit if you're jumping from side to side because it might push your ankle over and cause you to roll your ankle. Whereas our active flats are neutral on the base. They have the arch support inside the shoe, but they're not pushing the foot into any sort of abnormal positions. So I wouldn't think there'd be a problem transitioning into them at all.
So people can come into any of your Frankie4 stores and be properly fitted.
Yeah, so we have 3 concept stores, 2 here in Brisbane and a new one down in Sydney in Mossman. So here in Brisbane we've got Indooroopilly and Windsor, and there's always staff here to fit the shoes. However, if you live somewhere where when you're a concept store and you have to order online, well, don't hesitate to call or email customer service team because they're there to help with fitting issues and so forth. And if anything happens and you've ordered something online and it actually doesn't fit you correctly, there's no problem sending it back and swapping it for the half size or size up or down that actually is going to fit your foot.
So you could just email customer service, say this is my normal shoe size. I have a wide foot or a narrow foot or a high arch, or these are the foot problems I get a lot of heel pain or whatever, and they're going to be able to suggest the right size.
And even if there's something a little more complex, customer service will come and talk to me because I am a podiatrist and I know what these foot pains mean and what causes them, and I'll help them in giving you a selection of shoe choices.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's important too, is someone might have their heart set on a certain shoe, but if they come in and they've got this multitude of issues, that might not be the right shoe for them.
Exactly.
But you guys have so many different shoes there that there is going to be something that is going to suit. You've got, like 10 different styles of trainer.
Exactly.
That all have, a similar look to them, but might have slightly different variations in who they're going to be.
And that's the thing.
For.
The range has grown. At the start of Frankie4 10 years ago, there probably wasn't all this choice, but now that things are getting bigger, the brand is more well known, we are able to offer a lot more choices. So if you come in for a trainer, we can offer you X, Y, Z, and one of them will fit your foot well.
Absolutely. But you guys, like we were saying before, even offer like your pointed toe flats that are absolutely gorgeous. You've got your trainers, you've got slides, you've got my favourites at the moment, which are the Tory. They're kind of like Birkenstock meets Valentino.
Yes.
They're a bit more bling. They're a Birkentino. And super comfy. I've actually tried on Birkenstock before and I actually found them incredibly uncomfortable, which is probably blasphemy for anybody who owns Birkenstocks, but I just put a pair on. I was like, they reminded me of old school masseurs, that really hard, aggressive situation. what the hell what were they about?
Well, I have no idea. We wanted a shoe that would suit most people, and I feel like, you know, we don't want to create something that is either loved or hated. We want something that everyone loves. So I guess the construction of our shoes are a little different in that I would say everyone who puts them on feels comfort, not that sort of two sort of contrasting groups of love and hate.
Absolutely. And I think I just love that there is so much variety, and obviously you guys are constantly doing product development, you're constantly bringing out new products. I love that you also still have the original style of shoe
Yes,
available,
the old favourite. I think we'll see that around forever because it is so popular, and every season we see it come out in new colours. So,
which is so interesting that a shoe that would have come out as a sensible shoe, really a functional shoe, is still something that people are buying and loving and wearing.
Yeah, well, when you're onto a good thing, why change?
Yeah, but I think it's also a testament to the fact that you have created things that still have style and aren't just you know, functional for a purpose, because there's a very, very small percentage of the population who are going to wear something that is functional for a purpose but not beautiful.
Yeah. So we wanted shoes that appeal to everyone and that work well for everyone, not just for this condition or for this condition. They work well for the function of feet generally and to prevent a whole array of foot conditions while also keeping up with the latest styles and fashion.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Sarah. This has been absolutely awesome. Everybody can go to Frankie4 online, Instagram, Facebook. You'll be able to find a link to their online stores, and also if you're local to Brisbane, Windsor and Indooroopilly would be your local concept stores to jump on in and get fitted, or Sydney in Mossman.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. We'll talk to you guys soon.